Live from clickorlando.com, this is News 6 at 5:30. This is a News 6 Plus takeover. Here now is Lisa Bell and Candace Campos with Florida Foodie.
Hello and welcome to Florida Foodie. I'm Candace Campos.
And I'm Lisa Bell. Today's guest is the executive pastry chef at Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando, known for making elaborate chocolate creations, such as an 11-foot tall, 850-pound model of the Saturn V rocket to celebrate its anniversary. We are so excited to be joined today by Chef Josh Cain. Thank you so much for joining us today and bringing so many treats with you.
Oh, of course. You can't come out having chocolate. I mean, hey, that's what I'm known for.
I guess we could say that you're cocoa for chocolate.
Yeah. We're going to have to change this to the Cocoa Podcast.
Oh, I like that.
So we're going to have lots
You're
of
one of those guests.
I am one of those guys.
Very funny. So this is very interesting. When you think of pastries and chocolates, you don't necessarily think of what we're seeing on our table today. What is this?
So, I like to start from what chocolate is, and a lot of people don't realize, it's a fruit from a tree. But this fruit actually grows off the side of the tree in the trunk, and it starts off with a little tiny flower. Almost looks like a micro orchid. It's very, very small, and then it gets pollinated by this little bug called a midge, right? And then you get these cocoa pods. This one's been freeze-dried.
Okay.
Now, the ones in nature, when they're fresh, they're all sorts of different colors. reds and yellows and purples, kind of like what I have here on the table. And then you open them up, it's kind of like almost, I would say kind of like a pumpkin, right? That flesh is kind of like that. You open it up, and inside, you know how you have the seeds of the pumpkin? Well, inside the cocoa pod, you have this sack of, cocoa beans that are connected all together. And then you can pull them out individually.
And
now,
they look like this.
This is actually some that have been, mucilage has been taken off, and these have been dried. And then what you end up with this is you take this and you crack them, and then that becomes the cocoa nibs. And then there, you make the chocolate from the nibs.
So if I wanted to eat fruit, technically chocolate counts is what I heard basically.
Exactly.
Yes. Now, does a yellow pod, the chocolate from a yellow pod, taste different than the chocolate from an orange one or a green one?
Now, there are different varieties. So you have the Criollo, which is, one of the rare. You have Trinitario, and then you have Forastero. Forastero is what you're going to use the most of. That's what you're going to see. That's where you get a lot of the bulk commodity of chocolate. The Trinitario is a very nice one. The Criollo you find in certain areas, certain regions, it's a little bit more rare, and it's not a very high output chocolate.
So how did you get into all of this? What was that spark that started you saying, I'm going to do sweets, I'm going to be a pastry chef?
When you were like 6 years old, were you just eating like Hershey bars nonstop?
So it's funny. So I didn't realize this. My first job was in actually a kitchen. I was 14 years old. I was working in the kitchen. I did culinary first. I was like, I kind of like this. So I decided to get my culinary degree and went to school. And, I worked in different restaurants around North Carolina. And I did that for about 10 years. And, for me, chocolate and sweets is something that I didn't realize until I got older, that I did this a lot with my great aunt. Everybody was in the kitchen, and my grandmother was cooking, but my great aunt was the one who always made all of the desserts. And I was right there. I'm helping her out, and I always had a huge sweet tooth. We used to go pick our own blueberries and strawberries, and that was just what we did. We would always go to the farms to get all our produce and our food, and then we'd go home and we'd process it and make cobblers and all sorts of stuff with it.
Well, it's one thing, too, to make something that tastes delicious, but the way you make it look is equally as important. Yeah,
lesson 2.
And just so our viewers know, this, although it looks like a cocoa pod, you actually made this. This is all chocolate. This is the real deal. This is what you made out of chocolate.
So one of the things I do, is I actually make molds as well. So if I want to make something out of chocolate and I want it to have certain details, I'll create my own molds. So I use silicone, I use different, thermoforming techniques to make different plastic molds and stuff like that to create what I want to out of chocolate if I can't do it by hand.
Do you have a 3D printer?
I have a like a vacuum forming machine to do that. I do not have a 3D printer, but I am working on a laser actually.
Wow.
So that's something that I can do, with chocolate as well. I can create a slab of chocolate and do some interesting details in there that I might not be able to quite get, by hand.
So did you have to call NASA and ask for these Saturn V blueprints to make your mold for that? How did that come about?
It's funny. Whenever I start the creative process, I always look at ideas. I see things, and I'm like, okay, how can I take this in a sheet of paper and it's like little tiny drawing? How can I scale it up to what I want it to be? So I did that. I looked at all the different things of the rocket, and I looked at kind of like its overall scale, and then I'm like, okay, well then I actually kind of created a scale from, I think it's like a 1/45 or something size of the actual rocket, but don't hold me to that. But I start to take those drawings and I actually draw out the full size thing and I scale it up to what I want it to be. Same thing with the train that I made. I did that, and the rails are actually a 7.5 gauge rail. I created a mold of that. So
we're not talking about a model, like a little tiny model train.
Because it is on display from time to time at the resort, but we're talking 32 feet long.
32 feet, 1,600 pounds of chocolate. I mean, and most of the time I spend more time explaining that, yes, every part of that is chocolate.
I mean, even to the little bolting of the typical train.
All the little details.
Everything. Yeah, and that's one thing there's a lot of engineering that goes into it. But yeah, right.
I like this guy, Lisa.
Yeah.
But I teach my chocolatier Maria, like I teach her, and that was the first time she did anything like this. I teach her, I'm like, look around the kitchen. What do we have that we can create something that we're trying to accomplish? So like the smokestacks are like Bain Marie's from the kitchen. I use saute pans for the wheels, and stuff like that. So I'm using things that are around to try to get that form and shape. And then a lot of it's handwork, and a lot of it's some different stencils and things like that. And I cut out, and there's just so many different techniques that go into that to make it look real and true to form.
What's the most aggravating part of the process? Because I can ask you what's the most exciting part, but I feel like sometimes when you're sizing these things and you're also working with chocolate, not with, wood. A
lot of trial and error.
Yeah, I mean, temperature matters, weight matters, all that matters. Like, so what's that thing that you're just like, maybe the one thing you were not the most excited about?
Probably moving it. Because that's when it's so stressful, and the biggest thing with that is that's when everybody comes around and gets in your way, and they're like,
to watch.
Oops, and I'm like, yeah, you're funny, but you don't know what I'll do right now. No, I'm just kidding. But it's hard moving it. It really is.
And I have to imagine when you have the plan to make something like a 32-foot long train, everywhere you go, you start looking at objects as potential molds. Whether you're at the store, just driving down the street, like, oh, maybe I could use that to create this.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because this year we added Santa, sleigh, and the reindeer. 34 feet long, like literally 9 reindeer, full sleigh.
Because the train wasn't enough.
Yeah. Well, I had to make it look right in our lobby because it was just one-sided last year, and then this past year I decided to add to the other side, and so Maria had seen how we created the train, so. As she's sitting there, she starts thinking of these things. Oh, what if we do this? What is it? And I'm like, it kind of was like, all right. Okay. She learned something, and she started doing things, and it worked. It really did. And for that, I built these things really substantial so that they can last this test of time. And one of the jokes was, I was like, listen, if this sleigh will hold me, it's going to hold the Santa that I'm about to put in it. So I actually, literally got in the sleigh and sat in Santa's seat.
No, it's that strong.
It's that strong, yeah.
And so every year is the plan to add to this display?
So those two pieces are giving me the length that I need in the spots that they're going to be. Those will be the footprints that'll stay. Now, what I'll do is I'll add filler pieces. So this next year I might add a snowman. I might add, chestnuts roasting on an open fire. But not just, small. I'm talking about like giant. Have this little fire and have them
no real fire near the chocolate.
No real fire near the chocolate. No, definitely not.
Rule number 1.
Yes. So what was also interesting, you were saying this masterpiece that you created, you actually reuse that year after year, and we were a little surprised to hear that because how can you keep chocolate and have it last that long?
So let me ask you this. If you ever go into your pantry, you get chocolate out of your pantry, right? You get it out, it looks kind of grayish, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Okay.
What that means is that it's just come out of the temperature a little bit, and that it's come out of temper. So what we call that is fat bloom, all right? So some of the cocoa butter has come to the surface, and it's just not as shiny as it was, and it's just not as pretty as it was. Melt it down, use it, eat it, it's fine. Now, if you put that said chocolate in the fridge, once you pull that out, or the freezer, what's going to happen is it's going to sweat, okay, especially here in Florida. It's going to sweat. And then what that does, and this is a little science lesson for you, sugar is hygroscopic, okay? And what it's going to do is it's going to draw to those moisture droplets on top of the cocoa pod or on the chocolate, and then it'll recrystallize as the moisture then, dissipates.
So putting chocolate in the fridge or freezer is a huge no-no.
Yeah.
That is news
Just
to me.
room temp, and I mean, you shouldn't be having it leaving around that much anyway. You should eat it.
No, it never lasts that long.
Yeah, you gotta
anyways.
enjoy
But
it.
sometimes people actually like it. They'll put, say, Girl Scout cookies in the freezer
Yeah.
because they like it cold, especially in Florida.
Yeah.
No, that's
I mean,
heartbreaking to you.
Out of the freezer.
if that's what you like, that's what you like.
Okay.
I mean, but
Deal.
if you're gonna have a truffle that you're gonna buy or bonbons that you're gonna go buy at really high end, chocolate shop or something like that, no, you want to make sure that you're enjoying them. They're there, and those don't have that long of a shelf life. You want to make sure that you're enjoying them at their freshest.
So this train stays at room temperature year round.
Yep.
How long do you think it will last?
Ooh, if all goes well, I would say, it's almost this year, this December will be 2 years old. I think it would last 8 years or more.
So you just have to kind of give it a couple little dustings and a little extra little TLC.
Yeah, we cover it, and what happens over time, the cocoa butter will lose some of its pigments. So what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll airbrush, and we'll make sure that it looks fresh and looks like it did when we first made it.
He doesn't just make things out of chocolate, but it turns out he actually makes the chocolate too. Stay with us as he tells us about how a trip to France is helping him bring even more flavor to his creations. Oh, and did I mention, we're also going to be doing a taste test too. Welcome back to Florida Foodie. We are speaking with a man who makes out of this world designs all out of chocolate and then displays them at a local resort. But that is not all, so let's get right back to it.
So you're creating, but you're also working on a project, actually creating your own chocolate. So
Yeah.
formulating
Yes.
your own chocolate.
So-
what's that process like?
Back in October, I had the chance to go to France, and the company I was with, they approached me. They said that, hey, would you be interested in formulating your own chocolate? It's called their Or Noir program, and this is through Barry Callebaut. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I got all the information. They kind of told me what the usage would be and stuff like that. And, I pitched it to my boss, and he's like, that sounds amazing. Like, who's doing that around here? And, there's not too many people that are doing that. So we got to the day, we get on the plane, we fly over there, and it wasn't just me going and making the chocolate. It was an immersive experience, so we're experiencing where we're going. We're having, the food, we're seeing what's around, and, it was really cool because it was it looked like an old house that we're in, and you basically go in there, and what you start with is taste. So without knowing what I'm tasting these different chocolate bases, right? And they're not finished chocolates, but chocolate bases using certain beans. So beans from Venezuela, beans from Peru or Bolivia, or the Ivory Coast, different beans, and you're kind of picking up on different flavor profiles. And then I would say, oh, I like this, or I don't like that, and then that's what kind of starts the whole thing. For me, one of my favorite flavors of chocolate comes from Madagascar. I love the way it tastes. I'll explain to you that in a second. Why? I'm going to take you on an immersive experience with chasing the chocolate.
Can we go to Paris to do this?
Sure, let's go.
Let's go.
But it's really cool. So we start the process. We work on the flavor profiles. We take those, and then we kind of start a formula. We kind of start with a base. We temper the chocolate once we get that base. We put all the stuff in this machine, and it kind of tempers it for us. It kind of gets it to the fluidity we're looking for, and then we taste. The one that I actually landed on was it had beans from Venezuela and Madagascar. It has a really nice flavor profile, and what I was trying to do is tie in what happens in Central Florida, what grows in Central Florida, and some of those notes. So they have a lot of fruity notes, red berry kind of notes, kind of like Plant City strawberries, right? Citrus notes, the honey that goes along with that. So I wanted to kind of tie that into my chocolate so it really brings it all home for what we have, in Central Florida.
So is that your primary chocolate that you use now, day in and day out?
I don't have it yet,
Okay.
so it should be here within the month. I just
know.
got some marketing materials for it, explaining it has a picture of my formula.
Yeah.
It has, my name that I created.
Okay.
It's the certificate of exclusivity.
Yeah.
If I said that right.
Yeah.
And then it just tells about, the Caribe Royale, how you can only get it there. That's the only place you can get that chocolate is at the Caribe Royale.
You ready to go around the world and do a taste test?
Let's
I
go.
was say we haven't even tried any chocolate yet.
Yeah.
We can try this or no?
Sure, yes. So, okay, now, I don't know if you can tell in the light, but 2 different milk chocolates, okay? This one's Havara, this one's Bahibe, okay? Now, if you can kind of see, they do look different.
This one seems darker.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So, what they kind of consider this is like a dark milk chocolate.
Okay.
Right? And what that means is there's more cocoa mass in the milk chocolate. This one's going to be probably a little bit sweeter tasting. This one's going to have a little bit more of those cocoa notes, more like a dark chocolate, but you still get that richness from the milk chocolate.
Okay.
So it's very, like I said, very interesting. The milk chocolate that I created was based off my dark chocolate, and it is kind of like what you would classify a dark milk chocolate.
That's good.
So what's next? What's the next thing on your to-do list? Because you're also competing on top of, creating your own chocolate and the resort and all that stuff. You're also on the Food Network.
Yeah. Spring Baking Championship.
Yeah.
So episode 7. So yeah, still on it.
Okay.
What's that been like?
It's interesting. It's one of those things, like, it's a lot more challenging than I could possibly ever imagine. I knew it was going to be tough going in, but it's legit. You're right there. And whenever you see this, that's when we find out. That's when we go. And then we just have, our time allotted to create. And, you can have every plan in the world, but if something goes wrong, then you got to be able to react real quick.
Are you doing?
Showing up at the resort? Like,
Actually, last week my brother was staying at the resort, and I was out there. I was walking by the pool, and he was out there, and I was talking to him, and somebody came back like, "Are you Josh Cain?" I'm like,
Stop.
"Yeah," and they actually recognized me from the show, so I was like, "That's pretty cool." So
Yeah, do you normally do chocolate? Do you try to stick as much to the chocolate world as possible?
chocolate's what I'm passionate about.
Right.
We have the pastry side of things as well. I do a lot of desserts. I've done a lot of cakes in my time. But chocolate's what really hits home for me. So
You can kind of tell.
yeah.
yes. Yes.
I'm actually expanding my chocolate room right now because we quickly have outgrown that space. So I'm working on expanding that to make it where we can do actually classes and bring guests in. They can pay to take these classes and come see what we do and create these things that you see on the table. So that's something we're developing right now, and I'm working on that and getting that kind of moved over. And yeah, it's exciting.
Before we go, I do want to sample a few more of these sweet treats that you brought. What are we looking at here? And is this what you could?
You haven't
we gotta
even,
keep going.
you haven't
Okay.
even revealed the Cocoa Pods. There's more under there.
There is?
Yeah. So grab one of those Cocoa Pods and
Okay.
then lift them up.
Okay.
Whoa!
You're good.
Yeah, what is this?
So this is a key lime
I'm
bonbon
eating this.
that we've made.
Oh my gosh.
What? Hold on.
Oh, don't worry, it keeps getting better.
No. What?
Wow. These
They've
are
been
beautiful.
under our nose the whole time.
They taste amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, the key lime. I'm sensing some coconut.
Whoa!
Yep.
It's amazing.
This is good.
I feel like I need to be in Key West right now.
I don't know why I said that. Like I'm surprised. I'm not.
Yeah, and then we have our raspberry, and then we have a orange honey as well. So, this is all made in house. And I have 2 chocolatiers right now, and they just we create and we have fun. We make all these caramels as
How do you come
well.
up with this? I mean, this idea.
So what we do is we start off with our molds. The molds that I get actually come from Belgium, from a place called Chocolate World. Same place my chocolate machines come from, and they have different crazy molds. Like this one has some texture to it. This one's the smooth hemisphere. And then we just same thing. We start throwing out ideas. What do we want to see with our chocolates?
To me, this is Central Florida.
Oh, absolutely.
Right here, the orange,
The
and
orange
the honey.
with the honey. Yep. It
Oh,
screams. Yep.
Oh man.
So,
Wow.
Not only just creating that, then we also do, caramels. These are vanilla pear caramels that we make in house, and these are
Vanilla
espresso. Yep. So these candies are all made in house as well. This is something that's really unique because we use these right now for turn down service in the resort. So we do 4 different flavors. We do the vanilla pear, we do a passion fruit mango, and we do a raspberry. We do a chocolate. So different flavors that we use for our turn down guests.
Okay. You said this one was what? Sorry, I was
That's
focused on all these.
amazing.
Yeah, no,
That
this is
orange and honey.
orange and honey. Yeah.
And then what are in these?
So what we call these are our clusters. So we'll take our nuts and
Oh, hold on a second.
I know, right? That is Central Florida. That is Central Florida in a bite. Honey and
You're
orange.
good.
I don't think you can say that on the air.
Sorry. So possibly at the marketplace,
Oh,
market
absolutely.
you'll have a
Yeah.
couple of these options.
yeah.
Don't bring the kids into the market.
Right. No kidding.
No.
Great, great gift ideas too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in
Absolutely.
today
Thanks
and
for having me.
showcasing all of the beautiful items that you are making. Everything is delicious. It tastes as good as it looks.
Thank you.
Congratulations on all your success.
Candace and I are going to be wired for hours now.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh.
And thank you so much for watching Florida Foodie. You can catch us every Wednesday on News 6 at 5:30, or you can watch anytime you want on the News 6 Plus app for your smart TV.